This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Hey friends, this is Audie Cornish, host of CNN This Morning and The Assignment, and guess what? Every story you care about, every angle you want unpacked is now streaming on CNN. That means you can catch my show or other CNN programming whenever you want on your favorite device. And a subscription also gets you access to exclusive video series and unlimited articles. So subscribe to CNN at cnn.com/subscription.
If you want to listen to Lovely completely uninterrupted, you can subscribe to our Apple Podcast channel for ad-free episodes. It's $3.99 a month, and we would really appreciate your support. Hello, and welcome to Lovely. I'm your host, Mahak, and happy Friday. Also, happy Halloween, if you're listening to it today. Guys, emergency. I don't know what I'm gonna dress up for Halloween. I feel like every year I do this. I'm excited about Halloween. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have a good costume or outfit, but I actually forget that I have to plan it out and order it. I feel like last year I slayed. I was Princess Mia from Princess Diaries.
A princess? Shut up!
But this year you might just show up as a stressed out South Asian daughter. Spooky, scariest costume of all. My guest today, her name is Aubrey Aust. She is a writer, a researcher, and the host of her own podcast called Hint of Trauma.
At its core, it's the study of how we become ourselves through relationships, how identity, meaning, and ethics are co-created between people. It begins from a simple truth. No one becomes themselves alone. We come into being through recognition, through dialogue, through the fragile process of being seen and met by the other.
She is exploring modern love in a really grounded and human way in New York, and how trust and safety are built between people. So we're going to get all into that. Aubrey, welcome to Lovely. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
You're in New York, correct?
I am. I'm based in Brooklyn.
I'm jealous because I wish I was a New Yorker just for a few days so I could vote for Zoran. I can't wait.
I mean, I think it's always a good time to be in New York, but it has honestly been really exciting to be surrounded by this energy, and just being able to witness this political movement has been so cool.
Getting into something different. So I definitely want to learn more about you. And I think the best place to start is going back to your roots and going back to your identity. So talk to me a little bit about your connection to immigrant identity.
Yeah, for sure. So I am half Scottish, half German, fourth generation. And we were actually having this conversation prior to the start of the episode of how to pronounce my last name. And I say Aubrey Aust. It's like Austin, Texas. But the German pronunciation is actually Aust. And so if that is any telltale of how Americanized I am, one of many things. But I grew up in the Midwest, born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And that definitely had a huge influence on how I perceived relationships. I really didn't think you could ever hop off of the relationship escalator. I saw the ideal as you meet someone, ideally an undergraduate, because then you have to start thinking about getting married, and then you're buying a house together, and then you're having your children, and you got everything all nice and perfectly packaged by the time you're 30. And then I entered into early adulthood and realized, dang, that's not really how I roll. So I had a lot of great experiences to help kind of break me out of that relationship escalator model, made it realize it didn't really work for me, and have become hyper aware of how these cultural norms, these stories that we've heard growing up about how to go about our lives, but also what gives us the most satisfaction are largely inherited. So it's been a great introspective experience to me, so much so that this has turned into the research that I do in my day-to-day in relationships.
You said something about satisfaction is fed to you, but what is your version of satisfaction in how you live your life?
I see that in terms of fulfillment. I like to use the connection cup metaphor, and everyone has a different sort of cup. Some people, in terms of their, especially intimate relationships, they're like, yo, if I get an hour and a half of my partner with like, that is one-on-one quality time, I'm satisfied. And then I want my alone time after that. And then some people say, no, wait, I want to spend days and days and days with this person. And I want all this social interaction. I'm super extroverted. I want the friends, the parties, all the things. And so for me, I honestly tend to lean more on the side of introversion, but I'm so passionate about genuine, authentic connection. What are ones that are actually filling up my cup, and what does that look like? So for me, it's been a huge process of recognizing what those connections actually consist of, and that's fulfillment in the sense that I feel like we are improving each other, helping each other grow in some way, and ultimately being that system of support and trust. There's so much that we can talk about and that we will talk about in terms of modern dating culture. And first of all, the cultural capital of relationships, just the idea of being in a relationship. What does that mean? What social status does that give us? And how we think we're supposed to show up, how we want to be perceived. Of course, we're all aware of how we come off to people or we want to be perceived in some way, shape, or form. But I think we're losing the plot here in, wait a second, do I actually like this person? How do they make me feel? What happens when I take a break and say I'm running off to the restroom and just stare at a wall for a second and say, wait, what's going on in my body? Am I genuinely enjoying this experience, or am I so concerned on what this other person thinks of me that I'm losing myself in the process?
Yeah. Let's get into it. So actually, it's great timing that you've come on today. So I think maybe 4 or 5 days ago, this author on British Vogue released an article.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much the article, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I want to get your thoughts on it. So there's this article on British Vogue and it's titled How It's Embarrassing to Have a Boyfriend. Okay. And the whole context of the article is this person is saying, not having a boyfriend these days, it's actually like chic, right? And the script is being flipped because there used to be this idea back in the day that when you have a partner, when you have someone like a boyfriend or whatever, your value went up, right? Like if you were in a relationship, almost like being chosen validated you somehow. But now it's the opposite. Like if you're visibly into your boyfriend, people think you're boyfriend obsessed or you're losing your independence. I can definitely tell you my read on it, but I would love to hear your read on it and kind of like hear from your POV. Like, do you agree or do you think we've lost the plot?
That article did strike a chord with me because it does speak to how relational status has become this cultural performance in a lot of ways. And I do find it almost funny that we've gotten to the point where being single or detached is almost cooler than being self-possessed in a way in urban and progressive circles. And also the terminology of boyfriend. I think if I'm remembering correctly, there's a phrase in there that says it feels like almost Republican to be if you're a woman
Yes.
in a relationship
Yes.
with a straight man.
Yeah. But you know what it is? I think the main thing is like, I personally feel that like having a boyfriend is totally cool. It's fine. But it's having a boyfriend that disrespects you and embarrasses you is what makes it embarrassing. But yeah, sorry. Back to
No,
your
I love
thoughts.
that. And it that's exactly it, because it's the question I have with this is, why are we equating openness with weakness? Because I think that article is spot on in almost the cultural read of things, that yeah, maybe in modern culture, the oh my gosh, I'm so obsessed with my boyfriend is becoming quote unquote cringe. But I think it's also touching upon a larger problem that yeah, real connection is vulnerable, and we're getting to a point where we're lacking the cultural language to honor that without shame.
Yeah. I think like, something that goes up must come down. And I feel like for the longest amount of time, the thing that was going up was you're perceived as like you have everything going on for you if you are with someone, right? So that narrative like kept increasing. Everyone was like, yeah, like you need to have a partner. And people that didn't have partners were almost being looked down upon, right? So now I think it's having that opposite effect where it's like everyone has a partner and they're kind of using that to attach it with their identity. And like, I'm valuable because I have someone, and you're not valuable because you don't have someone. And I think people are getting tired of that narrative. And I think more and more stories are coming about how, not even exaggerating, but it is, if you choose the wrong partner, it is a matter of life and death. You have to be mindful. Like, is this shift about self-protection so people don't want to look too naive or too dependent? Or is it actually about empowerment and redefining what it means to be valuable or have value? So then I guess the conversation goes and it relates to your work. How do you date people that feel safe? And how do you continue to be vulnerable with people in that manner?
Yeah, this is a really painful answer. There is no guarantee, right? And that's what makes safety and exposure and trust so difficult. Yes, we can go into attachment styles more later. We can definitely lean towards one more than the other. Different ones can show up for us with different partners and in different relational contexts. But you do not have secure attachment with someone. You build secure attachment with someone. You have to teach your nervous system that this person can go off, do X, Y, Z, and they will come back and they will support you and give you the reassurance that you need. That's something that comes up over time. And so it's really this delicate balance that absolutely no one has the answer to of how to find that. It's incredibly individual. It's ridiculously personal to us, our own needs, and our upbringing, how we were raised, what were your relationships like with your primary caregivers. There's so many different components to how we build attachment with someone. And at the end of the day, trust and vulnerability is a two-way street. You have to be willing to open yourself up to the other in order to receive. And so it does take a lot to lower your guard with someone. And there is a strong possibility that you will get hurt in that process. But if you don't risk vulnerability, there's really no such thing as authentic connection.
I totally, totally agree. And that's the cost that you pay. And it's a good reward.
Hi, it's Eva Longoria, and let's be real. After 40, we should ask for more from our skincare. I swear by Revitalift Triple Power Moisturizer by L'Oreal Paris. With vitamin C, pro-retinol, and hyaluronic acid, it reduces my wrinkles, firms, and brightens. And it's not a procedure. It's just a hardworking moisturizer.
Revitalift Triple Power Moisturizer by L'Oreal Paris. Grab it today in fragrance-free or with SPF 30. Available at your local Walmart.
I'm curious to know what kind of a dater you were or you are.
New York dating is chaos. I'm definitely non-traditional in all the ways on how I go about dating. My first serious relationship was honestly the most incredible little relational laboratory in which I learned so many things. Of a 4-year relationship with a wonderful queer individual in which we explored non-monogamy. We explored what it was like to be in a long-term queer relationship with each other for the first time. And I learned so many nuances about my needs, my attachment patterns, my many, many flaws. And am incredibly grateful to still be in connection with this person even after our relationship ended. And so that set me off to be incredibly open-minded about what could be in terms of dating in the future. My general patterns, I've never been on the apps. I don't know if that makes me like...
Really?
Yeah. I've never been on the apps.
Okay, how did you meet this person that you're referring to?
All in the wild. This was in college, an undergraduate. And ever since then, I have met them through yoga, through different random events in which I just keep showing up in terms of community, build what starts as a friendship, but a friendship that's always like got a little something to it. And whenever I end up following that curiosity, it turns into my next long-term relationship. So I think the apps are a great point of contact, right? They're exposing you to people that you otherwise wouldn't meet. But there is a point where you have to get off the app. Sure, match with someone, have a little banter back and forth, make sure you feel safe meeting them at a public location, do the basic check marks, but then get in person, because there is so much that connection within the physicality, like we just discussed, that you are not going to get over a texting conversation. I am a rare case, but I have many, many beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, incredible friends who are on the apps and say that it's hell in New York. Because it's, decision fatigue. You have endless swipes. People are there's no accountability, or very little accountability in it too. It's so easy to block someone or ghost someone. And so it lacks that personal investment that, if you are a friend of a friend, that you're set up with someone, you will hopefully be treated with a general level of respect, because there's some human connection in that accountability linking you to, even if this doesn't work out romantically, I see you and value you as a human. And that is what we are missing in a lot of app dating culture.
And especially these days when, there's also a big culture being promoted that like, I don't owe you anything because you're a stranger. We need to stop doing that. You mentioned, you're non-traditional and unconventional in choosing your relationships. When did you discover that you wanted to be not traditional?
I never saw the model I grew up with in terms of the super heteronormative relational escalator-esque situation as my ideal. I respected and appreciated that for, classmates I had growing up, or the people who said, yes, I want this. And to them, a lot of people in my high school graduating class are married, have had their first child already. Like, they're doing the things and they are happy as heck. And I could not be happier for them. Like, that works for them. And for me, I always had this sense within me that I just, needed to get out of my hometown, which I think a lot of people in Midwestern America can empathize with, and B, just wanted to get out there and experience what does it look like when I create what I want my relational setups to look like. So I am open to non-monogamous arrangements. I'm queer. I really don't have a preference in terms of gender presentation. Like, if you look at the people I have dated, when I tell you I have range in all the ways. And so I realized that love can look a lot of ways. And that has come up for me really beautifully in both my romantic relationships, but also how I view even my platonic connections and chosen family, and the ability just to create community and networks, and especially in a place with me living in New York, of how it can be so hyper individualized. And we're all about me, me, me. Where am I going in my career, my relationships? How do I build this empire? Which there's so much pressure to do here. And I think we have once again lost the plot of this fact that we need community. Like, let's bring back the village. And what does that look like? And I'm learning how to construct that for myself right now.
And I think it goes back to this article that we were talking about, right? Like, yeah, I understand. Let's not get embarrassed by the people that we're dating because they're clearly not treating you right? So I understand separating yourself from people like that is chic. It's cool. But let's also not promote this culture of hyper independence, right? Because I've lived through that. I've lived through, it sounds like you come from a traditional family. So do I. I'm Muslim, right? Pakistani now. I live in Toronto alone. So I've gone through that lifestyle of like being so sheltered and not having the opportunity to do the things that I want to do, date the people that I want to do. So then I did go into this, hyper independent mode where I don't need anyone. I can do everything on my own, right? But it gets exhausting, and like you said, I now have my chosen family here. I have like an amazing group of friends who choose to live their life the way they live it. And I support that. We need to find a good balance in both those things. So not being super codependent, but also not being hyper independent. And I think that bliss point is somewhere in the middle. But I think we've lost the plot on how to get to the middle. I think we're either end of the spectrums.
And can I share why I think we're in that struggle right now? Because I have a lot of issues with language surrounding how we talk about boundaries and having these hard and rigid boundaries. And I'm saying this as someone who fully recognizes I am a people pleaser and it is bad. And I need to have better boundaries with people. That is my fundamental baseline, right? But we have gotten to a point where thinking that the necessary response is to be so overly boundaried that we need to remove any possibility of annoyance or frustration or, this person's just, I'm not really clicking with him right now. I got to cut him off. And to accept that if we want the greater community, we got to deal with more nuance. If it seems like a black and white answer, it's probably not the right answer. And I think that's why I'm so fascinated by relationships and all of this stuff and why most people is because I'm not going to give you a one-size-fits-all answer. If I do, it's not right. And we have to learn how to live within that nuance and to see each other's humanity within that. Because right now we're straddling this line of, either extreme boundaries and hyper independence or completely boundaryless. And what does it look like to live in the middle is, I think, the discussion of our time. I have a very distinct person in mind who is all about protecting her peace. And I love that. I want that for her, but also is really wanting to be in a relationship right now. And the tiniest little things on even just, first dates or even over text, it's an immediate no. And this person is meeting the majority of the people she dates on apps where it can be really hard to get an authentic read of a person through a text conversation. And so what does it look like, especially in dating in the early phases, to wade through the nuance? We are so big on calling out red flags. And don't get me wrong, there are some decent red flags out there that need to be called out, right? And it's part of, the pop psychology language that we have. I think it's empowering to be a little more conscious about the language that we're using. And instead of being pathological and prescriptive in the labels that we slap on things, what does it look like to actually talk about the feeling behind it? Or maybe examine the fear that comes up with it. That's scary. That requires introspection. And what does that bring up for you? And it's a great exercise in self-awareness, but also in sharing compassion. What does it look like to really see the other and recognize that person is, one, a mirror to you, but also you're never going to see yourself fully in them. You have to recognize them for their autonomy and embodiment of their full self.
Yeah, and I really admire people, who can think critically and also have the empathy and curiosity to learn the why behind what someone is saying when they don't agree with their take. And listen, I'm not saying that you need to learn the why behind every take. Okay. There are some takes that at face value you hear and you're like, I'm good. Like you're just a really horrible person. And, that's your take. But I would say about 75-80% of the time, there are hot takes, mild takes that you will not agree with. But it's curiosity and like just asking like, oh, well, why do you feel this way? Rather than just shutting them down completely. And I think the thing that you said about your friend, being on apps and kind of shutting people out before even going on a date. Do you think that there are more and more emotionally unavailable people on these apps that are pretending to be available, but they know that it's not going to get them anywhere on the apps? I guarantee you those people that are on the apps, if you ask them, come out to me with the bar to actually go talk to someone in person, they would say no, because there's a high possibility that could turn into something, right?
That is such a great point to touch on. And for me, speaking as someone in the emotionally unavailable capital of the world, not an official statistic, but it feels like one, that is so true to a lot of the dating experiences that I see and hear about. And I think it touches at something deeper within us all of we want connection, but we are scared of the sacrifices we have to make to get it. Or the sacrifices that we believe are necessary. I do think there is an issue with general emotional unavailability at this moment, but it's also that we don't have trust in the fabric of our connections or what we're able to create due to past trauma and experiences, or just the general ways that our generations are moving about the world right now. And it is that hyper-individualism.
I want to lean into that a little bit more. I like that term that you use. We don't have trust in the fabric of our connection. Where did you learn that? What have you seen that brought you to that line?
So I study a lot about relational satisfaction, what allows us to feel like we are the most fulfilled in our connections. And the idea that, hypothetically, we're more connected than ever, right? You could pull out your phone, you pull up your Instagram. I'm sure you could text 20 people and have responses, within the hour, quickly within the day. Yet we have people at instant access, and who actually shows up when we need them? In a moment of crisis or in a moment of extreme emotional vulnerability, how many people can you genuinely count on and know without a fault they're there for me? And so what is happening to us when we're surrounded by a lot of acquaintances? Sure, a lot of good, great people who are in our lives to a certain degree, but are not giving us the depth and fulfillment of connection that we as humans fundamentally seek. And so we're in an age of hyperconnected disconnection, is what I like to call it, because we are simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. And even when we are together, how many times, I don't know if you've been with a partner or even with friends, you have a long day of work, you come home at the end of the day, you just want to flop on the couch in front of the TV, and you're watching TV together, and you're together, but you're not really interacting. And then you're pulling out your phones and you have another screen in front of the TV. And all of a sudden, it's a mess of screens. And we fall into these patterns of being around people, but not truly connecting with them. And we need our TV time or our brain rot time, not shading that at all. But it's when that builds up, of when that becomes a pattern, even in our most intimate relationships. What is that doing to our sense of well-being and our sense of being seen, being heard? Our biggest craving is to be understood. And that means exploring our nuances and the dark and scary parts that we don't even want to confront within ourselves. And because we're protecting ourselves through these masks and layers that we put on, whether it be through social media, just how we present ourselves, any outward facing appearance, we are begging as a society to be seen, and we aren't giving our tools to do so.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of you can have 20 people comment on your latest Instagram post, but how many of those 20 will come pick you up from the airport? I mean, we crave that. Wouldn't it be so nice to share that moment or have someone show up for you in that way? But you're right. I think we're so used to having 3 screens in front of us at all time that our brain is just totally fried from the insane amount of dopamine that we get, that maybe just being in front of a person in a regular one-to-one doesn't give you that same dopamine hit. So you're disengaged and disconnected. But I don't know how we move past it, but the first step, I guess, is recognizing that it is a problem.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
So you have your own podcast called Hint of Trauma. Out of curiosity, why is your podcast called Hint of Trauma?
Great question. So everyone going through their lives will experience some form of trauma. Now, there's a distinction here between the capital T traumas and the lowercase t traumas. Capital T trauma is what we think of huge disastrous event, something that is horrific, really leaves a mark. But there's also lowercase t trauma, which is trauma that we all experience relationally. So if you have been in interaction with another human, you have likely experienced lowercase t trauma. And even if you go into a relationship, any relationship, it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be familial, it can be work, whatever, with the best intentions, you are still going to experience some degree of rupture and repair. That's simple relationality. We're humans. We misunderstand each other. We are not carbon copies of each other. There will inevitably be difference. And so my podcast is called Hint of Trauma, subtitle, because everybody's got something. Because at the end of the day, this is our life's work, is working through these tiny T traumas. And something that I focus a lot in my research, which is a big philosophical idea, but I think is so fundamental to understand in the day-to-day, is that the self, the capital S self, doesn't exist without other people. We would not have a concept of ourself if we were not in relationship with others. So who we see ourselves as right now is based on how we have built ourselves up relationally. Think about that. Think about the relationships in your life. And then think, wait, am I happy with myself right now? And how are my relationships influencing that?
Yeah, because I think so much about yourself that you learn is through other people, right? And so much of your growth and your, all of those things are through the eyes of other people, but also the interactions and the relationships. There's so many rules that have come into dating that makes it complicated. It's nice to just go in as a person, seeing another person, and just being yourself. But then if we're taking a step back and we're like, okay, well, now we have to think about how this other person is going to impact my life, or how is it going to impact my sense of self? Like what? It just seems so complicated. Like, where do you have to reflect and where do you have to just be? What's the balance?
Have you heard of Sherry Turkle? She's a technologist at MIT, but she does a lot of stuff within the human relationship space right now. I was at one of her lectures recently in which she talked about frictionless experiences. And you being in tech or tech adjacent, my fellow techies will know about, the ideal of technology is to provide someone with a frictionless experience. When I turn on my phone and open up an app, it better open first time. When I turn on the TV, if that thing doesn't go on, I'm throwing a fit because I expect my action to yield immediate results. We have become so enmeshed in that we expect frictionless experiences from our relationships.
Oh, that's so freaking true.
And when we don't get that instant gratification, we get mad. At least I know I do. And then I have to take a step back and say, wait a second, this is a human, not an iPhone.
Yeah, they're gonna make mistakes and not everything is gonna be perfect. Is there a name for that? So, like, obviously, frictionless experience with your technology. What kind of experience should you be looking for with humans? Just a human experience?
Connection.
Connection. Yeah.
I don't think there's an actual academic term for it. But it's literally humans dealing with other humans. So we can coin something right now for it.
Totally. Oh my God. I learned so much today. I learned so many terms. Another reason why I love doing this podcast, and I'm sure you can probably agree to it, is the guests that we get to interact with and talk to. Like, you just learn so much from them. Things that, if you just opened a book or if you were like watching a TikTok, like you wouldn't know from a 60-second thing. I love the art of meeting someone new, learning about them, letting the conversation go where it needs to, and then just being like, tell me more about that. And then you learn so much. I have a lot of different guests, and recently what I've been doing is I ask them a question, they answer it, and then they leave a question for the next guest. So this one was a little different. It was a question followed by action or direction. So I had Samir Marani last time on the episode, and he wanted to pose this question to the next person saying, would younger you be proud of who you are today? And then another is, would future you be proud of who you are today? And if the answer is no, then you have some work to do.
I love that. That's such a beautiful question. It honestly makes me emotional thinking about it because I feel like everything that I am doing right now is for my younger self and what she wanted to know or learn about or feel, but didn't have the resources or access or environment to do so. And so I feel like my work right now is fulfilling that dream. And that's a very sweet place to be in. Certainly hope my future self feels the same way. I feel like I have 50 fires going right now. I'm starting the podcast. I'm in the process of writing a book. I am finishing up my graduate degree. I'm applying for PhDs right now. Like everything feels insane. And so I hope when I come back on the show in a few years and you interview future me, ask me the same thing. But I hope to see the fruits of my labor at that time.
Well, I'm rooting for you. Can't wait to interview future you and hear about more things that you've learned. What question would you want to leave for my next guest?
What do you think you're hiding from right now and why?
Ooh.
I go dark really quickly. I'm so terrible at small talk.
Tell me about your traumas now, quickly.
And then come on my podcast. Perfect.
Okay, well, I am definitely excited to ask that one. And when you mentioned that the younger you would really be proud of what you're doing today, I think it's really beautiful that the work that you're doing right now is helping people be safe and find that trust and connection is probably what you needed the most when you were younger. And you're trying to help other people do that, and in return, help yourself do that too. So I love it. It's funny how life works out like that.
It is indeed.
For everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode and you enjoyed hearing Aubrey, go check out her podcast, Hint of Trauma. Follow Aubrey's work on her socials. We'll put it in our notes. And I think you have a beautiful way of turning your research into real life examples. And thank you for doing that today.
Thank you so much for having me. Follow my podcast at Hint of Trauma on Instagram and under the same name on all streaming platforms. Additionally, you can follow me on Instagram at Aubrey_Aust or head to my website, aubreyAust.com for more content, writing, and upcoming events. I host workshops and lectures in New York, as well as academic salons, which are open philosophical discussions on the topics of love. It's been an absolute pleasure being on the show.
Lovely is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan and Shay Yu, written by me, Mahek. Music, sound design, and editing by Lou Raskin. Other music is by Epidemic Sound. Tune in every Friday for more Lovely.